Hey guys, welcome back to Mine's Workshop. So this is going to be the final video of the laundry room remodel. So what I've got left to do is shelving there, and I've got to do the one above this refrigerator. We've got hardware, and then we've got to bring all the stuff back in. Actually, also one more thing, we got to paint this door. We're actually going to paint it to match the trim, so some kind of off-white. So, not a whole lot left, but probably my favorite part, which is getting everything organized and looking good. Where we're going to get started first is actually on this shelf above the fridge. So when I was talking about putting a shelf up here, I mentioned that I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. Was I going to set the shelf just on top and then brace it on this side that's open? Hadn't really thought it through, but there was a comment that I read that said, you probably want to get it up off the fridge. That way, if you ever need to pull the fridge out, it can move without the shelf having to come off, which is a very good point. So I've actually decided to mount it in a way that I actually hadn't considered. It was going to be a little more time consuming, but I think it's actually the best option. Instead of using the brackets that I have here for these shelves, I'm actually going to pull the fridge out. I'm going to identify where my studs are. And then I'm just going to mount a 1x4, making sure that I mount to the studs. And I'm going to put 3 1x4s up. Make sure they're all level. I want to make sure the shelf is even. And I'm going to mount it at about 73 inches, which gives me a couple inches of clearance above the fridge. I also double checked to make sure that that would be clearance for like a regular fridge. That was not this particular model. And actually this fridge is taller than my fridge in the kitchen. So we should be fine with the 73-inch clearance. And then I'm going to bring in the shelf to sit on top of that 1x4. I think I've actually decided to take another commenter suggestion. And once I get the 1x4 up, I'm going to paint it to match this pink wall so it just kind of blends in. All right, now that we've decided what we're going to do, let's get started. We've got a lot to get done in here. And honestly, I've got other projects that we need to get started and finished. This was a great suggestion. I like how the shelf cleat just kind of disappears into the wall. I may have to add something across between the two cleats on the walls, on the outside walls. I don't actually plan on putting anything super heavy up here. The more I've thought about it, I've got like a soft shell cooler that we take for like picnics and stuff. I'm probably going to put a tote with the extra sheets and stuff, but that's not going to be super heavy, and I'll keep it towards the edge. And then like I've got like some extra filters for the HVAC. So I don't know that I'll need to add a support across there, but if it feels like I do, once I start putting stuff up there, I'll just come back through and add something and then paint it or stain it. I don't know, I'll figure that part out. But I'm gonna go ahead and put the shelf in. I've got it in here and I wanna make sure it fits. Pretty good. Alright, so I'll probably throw just a screw on each side, just kind of to hold it in place so it doesn't come sliding forward. And then I'll push this fridge back into its place and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so the last piece of hardware is for this drawer right here. Now, this drawer actually did not come with any hardware, so we actually are going to have to drill our own holes, but that's not a big deal because the drawers in the kitchen only had single knobs, so I had to re-drill all the holes for this type of handle also, because this is the same handle that we're using in the kitchen. It just looks really good with these blue cabinets, so we're going to use them in here too, but I've got to drill these holes. Now, I'm going to show you guys something. I actually had what you would call a jig to very quickly and easily mark and drill your cabinet hardware holes. It disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. I'll probably end up getting another one, but that's not something that you can normally just pick up at a local hardware store. That's probably going to be more like a Lowe's. Even Home Depot probably doesn't carry it. Lowe's usually has more specialty tools. But anyways, what I'm meaning is that, you know, you can go through and measure each drawer face and get the center and figure out your spacing on your screw holes and then mark it and drill it. I would suggest making a jig. What this plastic jig would have done is it essentially just has all these pre-marked holes or pre-drilled holes in it, and so you could just set it up there, center it on your face, and look for the, you know, spacing. Like these are 3 inches apart. Look for the 3 inches apart, and then you want to look for your center, and then you just be able to mark it. So I essentially just made one myself out of a piece of cardboard. Okay, so the goal is we want to center this hardware in the middle of this drawer face. Right? To do that, we could just take our measurements, mark our holes, and drill them. But if you have multiple drawers that you're needing to do this on, and they all have the same width of face on it, I would make a jig. That's what I did because these are the exact same as our cabinets in the kitchen. So really I'm just using the jig already made for the kitchen in here. But how I made this is I found a piece of cardboard. I made sure that it was even on both sides. This is 6 inches wide. That's not necessarily that important. It just needs to be wider than the hardware you're trying to install. You're going to make a crease at the top, right? So that way you've got a place to measure from. Make sure it's even, right? Because that's going to sit on top of this drawer face right here. So then you're going to find the center of the width of your drawer face. This one is 2 3/4. So from that crease, measure down 2 3/4. Then you're going to find out what the distance is between your two screw holes for your hardware. This is 3 inches. Now that I know it's 3 inches, from that center mark, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches both directions, and that's where my 2 holes are going to go. All right, now that we've got the jig set up and it's going to be center, we're going to set it up there. Now how we actually get this to be center Because while it's sitting up there, we're going to take measurements on both sides. And I think that is going to be close right there. So it's 11 5/8 on that side. And that's 11 5/8 on this side. So the reason you want the cardboard to be fairly even is because you got to be able to measure to make sure that the jig is centered. So now once the jig's centered, you know that the holes are centered because you did all your measurements beforehand. Take a marker, mark the holes, and then you just got to drill them and install the hardware. You're ready to go. So depending on how your cabinets are built, you may run into a problem that I've run into multiple times while working on cabinets and kitchens in various places, is about how they're assembled. So this cabinet in particular, the drawer itself is built and then the face is attached to it. So what that ends up doing is adding an extra board you have to go through for your hardware screws, which usually makes them not long enough to get to the hardware. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so like this, as you can see, is the same thickness as the cabinet drawers, but then you've also got to go through this part, which is the drawer part. See, our pilot holes are coming through right here, which means when we put the screw through, it is barely poking out on that other side. So what you can do to fix this is essentially you're going to get a little bit bigger bit than you had, and you're essentially going to match that bit up to the width of your hardware screw. And the reason you're going to do that is because you're going to use this drill bit to essentially just drill out the spacing to let this screw move a little bit closer to the edge so it can get a hold of the hardware and attach. I'm going to say probably about 1/8 of an inch is about how much I take off, and that has essentially worked well. You don't want to go too far because a lot of times on hardware, especially cabinet hardware, there's only so much thread space inside the hardware. So what I mean by that is that after 1/8 of an inch of threads entering into the handle, it doesn't spin anymore. So if you over drill your offset, then it's not going to get tight because it's not going to be able to keep threading in, and then you're going to have a loose handle and a nightmare because now you've got holes in your cabinets that you can't use. So just be careful doing that, but it is an easy way to fix that, and I'm going to do it right now. Ain't that a beaut, Clark? Look at that. I'm ready to go. These are some seriously big shelves. I knew they'd be big, but I wanted them big. I wanted them as much storage as possible. So, alright guys, this is where we're going to say goodbye, and when I come back, we're going to have all the stuff in here and everything put back together, and we'll do a final tour. See you guys in the field. Okay guys, we got everything done. Let's go inside and take a look and see how it turned out. Okay, so now we're inside. One thing you'll notice is probably that some things have changed since I left and we brought everything else in. So let's go over that first. Once I set the camera down and brought Jessica in and we started discussing about how things turned out before we started putting stuff in, we both decided that the shelves were too big. That they kind of took away from the aesthetic feel of the room, which I understand that this is a utility room, and so functionality was heavily considered. Part of the reasoning was that we did such a cool paint job on these cabinets with this blue that we felt like the shelves coming out as far as they did and having that sharp edge really kind of detracted from that, and it kind of drew your eye away from how well it turned out. So for the shelves, the first thing we did is we decided to make them less wide. I shortened them up. by about 10 inches. The next thing I did to help with how the shelving was working with the cabinets and kind of making it detracting from it, making it an issue, is I actually took the corner off and put just a little bit over a 45-degree angle, because that's just how it worked out with the cabinets and the shelves. But essentially, you just take that corner off, which actually, as you're coming into the laundry room, helps draw your eye to the cabinets rather than to the big corner that's sticking out in front of it. Then the last thing I did is I went ahead and added a 1x2 trim over the front of it, which kind of gave the shelving some thicker depth. That was purely aesthetic, but I do think it helped the shelves look more put together and less utility. And I definitely think that taking this corner out and angling the shelves back towards the cabinets also helped in that capacity. The last thing about the shelves that we did that was not done before is I decided to paint these brackets. The white just really contrasted bad with every other element that we had, and it just didn't look right. So I went ahead and took them down and spray painted them some gold, and actually used a combination of gold and copper, just in different rotations to try and help it match closer to the hardware on the cabinets. But I think it turned out pretty good. And actually, as far as utility turned out, I think we actually got exactly what we wanted to get out of it. Even with shortening it up, we still had plenty of storage. We've got cat food, dryer balls, extra toilet paper, paper towels, cups, trash bags, things like that, and then the stuff for the laundry. And then up top is stuff that we don't use as often. So that's like extra tissues. There's some extra medical supplies, extra lunch boxes, plates, dog treats. And this stuff up here in the corner, it's actually our stuff that we used during the hurricane. So it's got the battery operated lamps, it's got the butane burner, and some other stuff. I actually went ahead and kept that in here just in case we need it again. You don't want to have to go out and find it. You know, obviously we've got our cabinets here painted blue, cleaners organized there. This is going to be like dog medicines, cat medicines, and some miscellaneous stuff. But I mean, the cabinets aren't even full anymore. So then we're going to come around to the lowers. So same countertop. We went ahead and replaced the faucet with something gold to kind of match the hardware and the shelving. So this big cabinet here is actually where we store all the extra overflow dog food. And then this has just got more cleaners and stuff underneath it. This is all the reusable shopping bags. So now we're back around to the fridge shelf. Fridge shelf I think turned out pretty good. So if you'll notice, I did actually come back in and add not just a support on the front, but a support in the middle. My reasoning behind this is, one, the trim on the front actually was not just for aesthetics. Before I even put anything up on this shelf, it had started to bow a little bit. I don't think it would have continued to bow and like become a problem where the shelf was going to collapse, but it just didn't look good. So I actually used this front trim piece and I pre-drilled it and connected it on this end, and then I pushed up and essentially straightened up this plywood by using this board up underneath it. And then I did add a support in the middle just because of the fact that it had already started bowing and I wanted to keep it from happening. So I did end up beefing this up. Up here we've got the travel cooler. We've got some extra baskets. A couple other things we have up here is like our travel crates for the cats when we need to take them to the groomer. Like William actually has to go get groomed, fairly regularly just because of his long hair. He ends up licking it all off and then coughing up fur balls. So we end up getting his hair trimmed just to keep that from happening. So like his travel crate is up here. And then this basket right here is actually all of our extra bedding for when guests come and stay. So we've got these, I don't even know what they're called. These like croc looking shopping bags. I don't even know how we got so many, but we do use them a lot. So anyways, bag storage, vacuum, and then we've got our 2 tubs of food that we're actively using. So the big one is for dogs, small one is for cats. One more thing, on the side of the fridge, I did put all of our extra kitty litter and some other boxes that were able to stack with each other. And I think that's about it. The broom ended up on the side of the dryer right here, easy to access, keeps it up out of the way. So in the beginning of this series, you saw just how much chaos was all over the floor and all over the cabinet countertops, the cabinets, all that. You know, this is 1,000 times better than that was. It's an actual functional utility room with storage, and we are really enjoying it. Another thing is I got rid of the massive shop vac and got this little backpack shop vac, and it hangs up on the door, so when you need to go clean something, you actually just pick it up, put it on your back, and put the extension arm on there and go. We've been using it for over a week now, and it's pretty awesome. So anyways, guys, that is going to wrap up this video and this series. It was a lot of fun doing it, and we've got some more remodel stuff coming, and obviously all the other projects on the farm. So thank you for supporting the channel and hanging out with us. I will catch you guys on the next one.